All right, all you podcast listeners, I managed to poke and prod Ryan Sage a little bit and save you some money on merch. So use code podcast23 at checkout. Save yourself 20% on your favorite FD merch, with the hats, shirts, lanyards, whatever it is that you want. Use code podcast23 at checkout. Save that money. Get yourself some cool FD stuff, and we'll see you out there. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Outerzone, the official podcast of Formula Drift. My name is Jacob Gettins, and today we have Kyle, the Menace Mohan. What's going on, buddy?
Oh, just really happy to be on the show. It's been a wild year. Been drifting now for a little over 20 years professionally with Formula Drift, and it's just amazing to see the sport grow and still be involved in it. So just happy to be here.
It's wild. I mean, in doing the research, like, you are an OG. You've been around. You've seen everything, which is crazy. Like, I'm sure there's times you look back and, like, especially this year is like, did this year hit you differently when they're like 20 years and you're like, oh, wait, I have been around for that long?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of amazing being around some of the drivers that have also been involved for 20 years. I think when we started, when I got a passion for drifting, before Formula Drift was even a series, we were doing the import show-off events, RSR events, and to then see the birth of the sport, try to conceptualize a business around it and make that be a business for a few years, try to draw that into your own plan when the sport was so new. And I know a couple of the other guys at the time that were also doing this, and to see some of those guys still doing it, and to be one of them that's still involved is amazing. And, it's been so cool to also develop the rotary engines that I build, kind of in conjunction with Mazda Trix and my own shop, to try to combat the sport, the evolution of the sport, the horsepower wars, the torque wars. We're one of the smallest displacement motors out there, and it's amazing to continue to evolve the motor packages, grow with the sport, and look back and go, wow, this all started because I was out doing burnouts, getting yelled at by my dad. And he was like, you got to go find somewhere to go do this. And I was like, all right, I'm going to go find a place to go do burnouts. And I did. I took it to the track. So, got yelled at enough.
I think it's funny that, like, so much has changed, but it also hasn't, because you're still doing burnouts and still getting yelled at by your dad. Like,
oh man, that's so accurate. And we just now have a very orchestrated place to do these burnouts. And it's been amazing. Can't believe it.
Would that have been like the Club 4AG days and stuff like that? Like way back? Yeah.
Yeah, that was Club 4AG. I think one of the first drift events I actually took in was Drift Day 4 by Club 4AG. And that was a long time ago. I still somewhere have a decal that's a Drift Day decal. And think about the fact that it was some of the people that were there went on to be judges. Alex Pfeiffer, Andy Yen, no longer judges or involved in the sport in the same way, but they were, founding people and founding figures, drivers. Came from Club 4AG, Taka, Naoki, Moto. A lot of these guys, they're older figures of the sport. Some of them are still around. Some of them are still very involved. And some of them have moved on. But yeah, those were some of the building block days that kind of helped American grassroots drifting turn into more of a professional sport.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of climb up that too. Like, obviously RSR, I'm assuming like Just Drift up in Willow, like all of that then leads to initial days of FD. And then what I think is interesting, and maybe it's just because of like the guys I've been talking to recently, is like how many of you went and competed over in China, and like going through and like looking back on those events and how insane those were. Like, because you did a couple of years, right? You did three years.
I did way more than that over there.
Was it way more than that?
Yeah, I think I went like over the period of about 10 years. I think I went 7 years. I missed a couple of years. They were really big events, stadium style events, a lot of professional drivers from the US, from around the world, Japan, simultaneously, while we were competing against Daigo Saito and other Japanese drivers here in the US, we were also competing against those same drivers in China while they were competing in Japan as well. So you really had a lot of competition going on. And it definitely, again, was kind of a building block that's led to some of what Formula Drift is doing, some of what we're seeing overseas, and then there was even events before that. XDC, Nopi Drift. There's been so many sanctions that have come through. I mean, obviously, Formula Drift has been the leading one that's given us all a home. But it's been cool to partake in those events, learn from those events, and then continue. But yeah, China was crazy. Just like the modern stadium events, massive crowds, very risky driving, and fireballs and entertainment. Is very, very cool.
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, I like seeing that, and it's interesting too when people are talking about all the different events going on around the world and different things. Obviously, you kind of look back and you're like, oh, this thing happened too. Like, I think we quickly forget everything that happened previous, and it's very easy to get lost in the now when it's like events like this have been going on forever. And with drifting in general and FD in specific, it's like there's kind of been like these ebbs and flows, which realistically are based kind of around the economy. Like, we talk about sponsorship and like, I mean, at one point in time you were sponsored by Circuit City. Like that program now would be nuts. Like people would be pumped, but like, we've seen big companies like that come in. We've seen them leave. We've seen them come back. I mean, you were sponsored by GT for a while. They left, they've come back. Like that's how all of this works is like, these ebbs and flows. So I'm excited to see what's coming up. I've heard some whispers on the winds of things that are in the works for the next couple of years. And I'm like, damn, we're now on the ground floor of what I think is going to be the next big couple of years of drifting.
I absolutely think the same thing. And it's been really interesting to see the growth after COVID. Obviously, there was kind of a pause in the world there. But the fan excitement, the amount of people showing up at events, and then the effort the teams have put in to just create wild cars up the driving level. I absolutely agree. It's going to be really neat, considering that this might be a ground floor level still of what drifting is, to what it can grow to over the next few years. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, I think obviously COVID set us back by a bit, and now it's like, okay, we had a bit of a economic boom. We kind of came out of it into a dip, and I'm hoping we're kind of like on that part where we're not in the basement anymore. We're starting to move up. Like
I absolutely agree. Like everything I think is the sport itself. We'll watch the economy, but the sport's on the move.
Yeah,
drifting's looking as good as it's ever been. You look at like the Utah event. I can't wait to see what we're gonna get out of Irwindale as far as media. It's just, the cars look so powerful on track. Every once in a while I step back as a driver and I look at it and I'm like, wow, that's incredible.
Well, without like, I mean, we're recording this before Irwindale for anybody listening. This will come out after, but it's fine. It's fine. But like, I don't care. Oh no, I pre-record shows. Oh no. But this is the Monday before Irwindale and there are no more assigned seating. There is just like single day tickets that are left. Like last year we sold out completely, I think on Friday before like on qualifying. Like, Utah, like first year was big. Second year was massive.
Sold out.
It's only going to get bigger. I mean, there's only a couple of events left that we're not selling out. One of them is St. Louis. And that's just because like I don't think we could yet.
Yeah, that's like, a big wall of bleachers right there. That's for sure. Yeah, I'd love to see what Formula Drift could do. And I mean, this is just speaking, from the heart, but it's like, I would love to see what Formula Drift, whether or not it's viable at this point, but what Formula Drift could do in like Los Angeles Stadium or one of those stadium style events. I mean, obviously the expense here in the US to set something like that up is different than it is in other parts of the world. But if expense wasn't the driving thing that's holding it back, like how big could that be? How many people would come to see like Formula Drift go down in a big stadium in a metropolis area? I think it could be really
100%.
big. Yeah.
It would be nuts. Like, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think that's like the big thing to talk about is it's a very different cost to do that in metropolitan USA than it is, in places in Europe. So
yeah, or in Asia where, we were doing the ones in China. So kind of same thing.
Yeah.
It's cost effective there. They had the stadiums and they had the resources to put it together. So
yeah, that's all good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I was going to get on to, I really want to touch on your new build. So I have this love-hate relationship with the FDRX7s. I've attempted to buy two. The first time the importer I was using turned out to be a scam and I lost a bunch of money. So that put like a bad taste in my mouth. And then the second time I came very, very close and the guy pulled out last minute. So they've been this car for me that's like unattainium because one, my two best friends growing up that I started all my content stuff with, one owns a black R34 and the other one owns a black JDM Mark IV Supra. So now I have to get a black JDM or FDRX7. Like it has to fit.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
you've managed to get your hands on another what looks to be a good looking shell. I mean, I'm sure it needs some love, but is that the next FD car? Is that the plan?
Well, the team, myself, obviously the partners involved, we're very much committed to Mazda and Rotary. For a while, we put in a lot of talk about what it would be like, to put a 3-rotor or a 4-rotor into something that's not a Mazda chassis or use a modern Mazda chassis, kind of like what Mad Mike did for Pikes Peak.
Right.
So we were like, wow, what would it be like to have a 4-rotor and a BMW in Formula Drift? Great suspension, specific styling. What would it be like to put a 4-rotor in a Vet? Kind of go the Rob Dahm route of, take an American chassis that has a lot of American support. I'm an American driver, mix the JDM and the American vibe. But in the end, you're absolutely right. Like, what I wanted, what my dream car could be, what I want, it became more important than maybe just filling the void and building another drift car per se for competition. And then also with our partners, Mazda Trix, they're the leading biggest distributor of Mazda rotary related parts in the US. So we wanted to work with our partners. I wanted to fulfill my own dream build in my life. And so, yes, we're going to build a FD3S Formula Drift car, and I'm putting a 4-rotor in it. I cannot guarantee when we're going to get this done. This is more of a labor of love. My team would love to see it on the track next year, and I think that's what my goal would be. But I'm not going to push this thing and try to rush it to get it ready for Long Beach Formula Drift. I've debuted too many cars at Long Beach, and it's nerve-wracking as a driver, and it's really tough to get the amount of testing you need in between the end of the year building a car and then getting into the upcoming season. So really our goal is to start developing this new build, this new motor package, this new car, kind of in conjunction with the team. Obviously, we're going to continue running Formula Drift, probably with the RX-8, and then we've got the MX-5 that's been developed and kind of a backup car we've been using in other drift series. We've considered Time Attack, but let's just be honest. Like, I'm a rotary guy.
Yeah,
I love rotary cars. I'm not going to stop buying rotary cars. I'm not going to stop building rotary cars. Everybody keeps asking, like, oh, yeah, we're going to stop. No, I'm not going to stop. I'm going to build the most iconic rotary car I can. I'm going to build an FD 4-rotor, and then I'm going to go just absolutely get wild with it in Formula Drift. What could be better? That's the dream.
Damn.
That's the dream.
That's sick. Yeah, I mean, you've I'm trying to think like the most polite way of putting this. Like you look at your standings over the last couple of years and it's not been amazing, but like you're here for the love, dude. No, seriously. I've been in the pits for a while. I try to make a point to stop and say hi anytime I can. Your dad stops me every event to make sure to say hi. He's like, have you seen Kyle? Yeah. I'm like, he's busy. But like you genuinely just love being there. No matter what happens out on track, no matter what the standings say, you just love it, which I think that's the most powerful thing in this, because if you don't, it's very easy to just not anymore. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think that's a big statement, as a family, as a person, as a car builder, as a driver. I love competing in Formula Drift. I really want to win. I want one of those trophies so bad. And I think it's so disappointing because this year the cars actually ran really good. We had a couple struggling years. I think, I've been really working on my driving. Obviously, I need to constantly get better as well as the car needs to constantly get better. But it's a year where, as a team, we've done great. We've had some great efforts, solid qualifying runs, and I just do not have the points on the bracket in Formula Drift to really show the effort that the team and the partners and what everybody has put in. We've literally had years where we had more problems or worse runs that got laid down, but we were more victorious because other people had failures. And this year we've just been up against Papadakis Racing, Forsberg. It's been RTR. It's just been back-to-back top teams. And I mean, I guess that's every team in Formula Drift now, because even us, we're not going out on a DNF. We're not going out because we break something. We're finishing out all of our runs just like everybody else. But it's been a very interesting year because we feel like we really did field a solid car. We put down a solid effort. But we just haven't been able to be victorious or get the points. So, just to kind of say it, it's like, yeah, I absolutely love being there. And that's one of the biggest reasons we show up is I build my engines and I build my car to prove that they're some of the best in the world. And there's really no other place to do that in the US outside of Formula Drift when it comes to drifting. And so that's part of my goal as a engine builder and car builder, because that's what I love. And then the driving effort, it's like, well, what am I going to do? Go shred tires alone? No, I'm going to shred tires against some of the best drivers out there, some of the coolest guys out there, and test my skills against those drivers. So it really is a love for competition and a love for the sport that keeps me coming back and keeps me pushing why I intend to build another car that's going to be lighter, more powerful, shorter wheelbase. I do like shorter wheelbase cars. Everybody talks about the MX-5. I used to have some pretty good battles in my FC. I've driven 240s and S chassis, and the RX-8 really is the size of a Mustang. So it is actually one of the bigger cars out there with the smallest displacement motor, which you don't notice it so much, but I think that was probably a difficult thing for us to field. And looking back, I think we can field something that's going to be more competitive and probably highlight what I am as a driver better. So,
do you think switching over to the four-rotor, will that sort any like the torque? Yeah, obviously, like Rotary, the torque is where it's missing. Has all the top end. You have rev range for days. The power band on those cars, I've seen the dyno graphs. Like, there's a power band. It's not like you're just spiking. Yeah. So is that why the four-rotor is coming into play then?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, there is a game of horsepower to usable traction that's happening in Formula Drift, and it's not really being exceeded yet. You look at some of the teams out there, and they're using 1,100, 1,200, 1,300, 1,400 horsepower. Who knows?
Yeah.
There's some big numbers going on, and we're laying down 1,000. On boost, it's into the 900s. With the nitrous, we're getting over 1,000. But we still end up in the torque range of the mid to high 700s with a three-rotor. So that's where we're deficient. It's not bad, but it's not great. And so with a four-rotor, we should be able to square that up a little more typical to what your inline sixes see, or even a little closer to what some V8s might be producing, which is if we're making 1,100 horsepower, we should be in the 800 to 900 foot-pounds of torque range. And I think, torque number-wise, that will start to create a torque number that starts to be competitive with some of the V8s that are out there. I think it'll still be deficient to some degree, but with displacement, even in rotaries, you do pick up torque. And rotaries are kind of interesting. When you get into a four-rotor, you're starting to get overlapping pulses. So you're actually firing a little bit on top of each other. So the torque starts to multiply. As we're a two-rotor, you're completely separated. A three-rotor, you're starting to pulse up. A four-rotor, you're starting to overlap.
Interesting.
I think that's right. Yeah, because it's 100% duty cycle motor. So one pulse hasn't quite finished before the third one starts. The third pulse hasn't quite finished before the fourth pulse is starting to light off. if that makes sense. So that really does help with torque. And that's why I think, the four-rotor is an iconic motor. It sounds amazing, and it's where it starts to really become a argument for displacement and piston motors.
Would that still be NA, or are you adding
throwing
turbo?
all the turbo, all the nitrous. I don't know any better. Like if I had a V8, I'd still do all the same stuff. Like I would just, if I had like a 6 liter or a 7 liter, I'd still want like multiple turbos and lots of nitrous. I've spent 20 years dialing in these wild setups. So why wouldn't I put all that stuff on there too, as the displacement goes up? So yeah, we absolutely intend to keep it turbocharged. It's still a debate whether we'll go single or double. I think twin turbos on a four-rotor is good with efficiency of boost and the ability to make torque, but it gets more complicated. You have more things to break. I've done twin turbo cars. So if we can get away with a single and get to where we want to be with the nitrous, I think that would be ideal for me, kind of a simplified setup. No anti-lag on that particular setup like the 3-rotor in the MX-5 has. I think the nitrous just being used aggressively is just as powerful of a torque filler and a boost filler than the anti-lag was. So I think I would just try to basically run a significant amount of nitrous with a nice single turbo on a 4-rotor, and that would be very, very good for Formula Drift.
That's exciting. And that chassis too has a good amount of aftermarket support. It has a cult following. It's got a lot of interest. It is arguably one of the most beautiful cars ever created, in my opinion. I mean, there are very few cars. And you already have, do you still have the show car? Okay, cool.
So I still have the show car, and that's a BN Sports BLS kit. And everybody has said, why don't you drift that car? And it really is that with the authentic body kit and the time we put in there, I just couldn't bring myself to take it out onto the Formula Drift circuit and beat it up. And kind of like you said, it's such an iconic chassis that I always had a little bit of like, just, man, do I really want to go beat up one of these rare cars that's irreplaceable? There's not a lot of FD RX-7s in the world. They're a limited numbers chassis, a limited numbers car in the US. They only brought them in for 3 years. And if you actually look at the numbers, it's remarkably low. I think arguably the Supra, the NSX, and the FD3S are probably at the Skyline. The four, most sought after Japanese iconic classic kind of supercars. So to take any of those out into Formula Drift and know that the chassis could get sacrificed to the Formula Drift gods, is tough. Is really tough. Because we've had that happen. We've lost cars and had to rebuild. But I actually bought 2 shells. So knowing full well what I wanted to commit to and not wanting to take apart my street show car that I built for SEMA a few years ago, we found a couple chassis that were straight and looked like they could be Formula Drift cars. So one of those is actually out getting a roll cage. We're going with cage kits. Awesome, guys.
Nice.
Getting all TIG welded in. And then we're going to start to fit the 4-rotor and fit the drivetrain, HGT sequential gearbox. Again, I bring those in from overseas. So we're going to go with kind of a very similar package to what we've already developed for years now. We're just adding a rotor to it. And it's kind of been from my engine development side as an engine builder. What I really wanted to bring to the table was what I call like a 1,000 horsepower 3-rotor package. Something that you could drop into a drift car, a street car. Depends on where you live. Road race car, drag car, boat, airplane. I put rotaries in all kinds of stuff. Drones. Not me personally, but for people buying odd rotary engines from me and builds. But one of the things that has been desirable is like, okay, I just want a bolt-in 1,000 horsepower rotary. So that's kind of where we've got to with the 3-rotor, is very confident in that package. But in Formula Drift, we need a few hundred more horsepower. So add another triangle, more Dorito.
You've kind of like dispelled a lot of myths too with like rotaries being unreliable, because this is the same engine all year, right?
Yeah. Oh man, like knock on some wood. My whole goal was to be able to continually come back year to year with the same block. And we've done that over different years. Last year was not a super successful year. It was not the engine's fault. We had some electronic issues, and that hurt the motor. So we had to rebuild it twice last year. But this year, it's been the exact same block, hasn't been apart. It went through dyno, preseason testing, more dyno, Long Beach when I hit the wall. Probably should have taken it apart then just based on the physics of the crash, but we had to get to Georgia.
It was a good hit, man.
No, it's not a good way to start the year. But the car took it. I took it. We got out to Georgia. And so the one thing I would say is the motor has been remarkably strong and reliable this year. And I would say that anybody in Formula Drift is pushing their engines. We're all pushing them, whether it's the V8, the inline, me as a rotary guy. But all of us would prefer to have our engines be as reliable or last throughout the season as often as possible. And, it's always, I don't want to say this the wrong way, but it's always a nice feeling when the rotary engine is the one that's reliable. And I look out there and I see inline guys and V8 guys having to change engines, change blocks. And some of them are very similar horsepower to what we're laying down. So the myths of the rotary engine, the apex seals breaking, things like that, I would say that is just not myths anymore. Right behind me, is it the unbreakable apex seals I run? I didn't mean to have them behind me. I just have them everywhere. Because I'm a rotary guy, I got apex seals everywhere. But you build it properly and you should be able to get what you want out of it, just like any other motor out there. And that's what I tell people is, you can set up a V8 that should be able to do 1,000 plus horsepower for a year. You kind of know what the formula is. Same thing with the rotary. We've gotten to a point where you want a 600 horsepower 13B, 800 horsepower 13B, 1,000 horsepower 3-rotor. I can pretty much tell you what's going to be reliable as long as you can get fuel and spark to it reliably. That's up to you.
So what if, I guess, what was the thing that was causing all of these rotary fails previously? I don't want you to give away your secret sauce, but what were guys screwing up?
Fuel delivery. Huh? Yeah, it's fuel delivery. I think the biggest issue with rotaries is they need more fuel when you're tuning them based on the stoichiometric curve. They are not the same as a piston engine. They need more fuel. It needs to be
non-linear.
Yeah, not. If you try to tune it like a piston motor, you will lean it out and it's done. And then a big issue with rotaries is they only get one oops and it's broken. If you detonate, it's broken.
Interesting.
If you overheat it, it's broken. If you lean it out, it's broken. And I've seen this time and time again with piston motors, even the V8s I've built for myself. I've built V8 cars in case anybody's wondering. I think they're awesome. I'm a hot rod guy. I love that stuff too. But I was able to break them as well. But they're way more forgiving in tuning.
Okay.
You can accidentally run a V8 out of fuel or overheat it, and it will probably be fine. That is not the case for rotaries. So in the end, you have a combination of the motor probably being slightly underbuilt for what it was trying to do, and then probably being used in a little bit more of an aggressive tune or configuration than it could actually take. And you compare that to your old 350 small block, and it would go detonation down the street, running lean, running fat, and you come back and retune it, and the rotary wouldn't come back down the street. So that kind of leads to, from an American standpoint of hot rodding, why is this engine breaking all the time? Not a why am I screwing it up all the time? Because other engines take that, no problem. So you kind of have to go into the rotary engine build with a different understanding of I actually can't find out where the detonation limit is. I have to stay safe. I'll never know where my 3-rotor is going to detonate unless I want to blow it up.
And then the next one's different anyway. So,
and then, you just blew that one up. So now go build another one. And so I think, a misunderstanding from just what we could get away with in automotive culture. And then it was very easy to use the apex seal as a scapegoat because the original Mazda motors had a carbon apex seal, which did fail all the time and wear out too soon. So the first generation of rotaries in the 70s basically gave the rotary engine a reputation that's carried them through till now.
Right. Similar to like what we saw with like early turbocharging in the US or even diesel, like the diesel craze, the terrible diesels in the 80s and 90s. I mean,
exactly.
it got better with like the 12 valve Cummins and stuff like that. But So it was just carried a reputation from like a one generation that was particularly bad.
I would say yes. And then I will say the RX-8 did it no favors. The RX-8 did Mazda no favors. It's an awesome chassis, but it was a problematic engine that didn't deliver the horsepower that the previous generation turbocharged motors did. And I think people kind of wanted that power from their rotary.
Of course.
And then it really did just have a habit of dying around 80,000 miles, which when you're talking about a new car, that's pretty low. That's tough. Yeah, that's tough.
I've had 3 friends run them and they've all said the same thing. Like, mix your fuel, cut all the emission stuff off them. And there was like one other change that they had said. But they're like, if you redline these things like once every couple of days, they're fine. Great. They just build up and you just gotta clear it out. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And again, I think it's like that weird thing where premix, obviously, same thing. It's behind me. I'm a rotary guy, so it's like everywhere. It's everywhere. The renewable lubricants premix, which we helped develop. But basically, it's don't be afraid to rev them. I think, again, you have so many people that buy a rotary and then they're afraid to do rotary things like rev it up or premix it. And so they end up driving it softly, which isn't going to do it any favors. It's like an old Italian car. You got to drive your Ferrari. You got to drive your Lambo. You can't just let it sit in the garage. It's going to clog up the valves with carbon, and then you got to do the old Italian tune-up, Yeah. But pour some ATF in there. Go floor it. Yeah. But, so rotaries were similar. And so then you have a combination of just people probably not changing the oil enough because, we're just, American car culture is not the best on maintenance. And it's a very small motor. So based on displacement, based on heat, it needs its oil change like every 2,500 miles, not every 5,000 miles. Okay. And so then, people just don't do the maintenance. They get overheated and they die. It's like having a motorcycle engine in a car. If you don't take care of it and it's that small, you're just overworking it. So
it's a good point. I'm in this weird stage.
You
where
need one. You need an FD in your life. It'll change your life. You won't have any money anymore. I know. All your friends will be jealous, but it'll just sit in your driveway and you'll always get to buy parts for it online. I love FDs. They're fantastic. That's what it'll happen. It's just like I've been waiting for the right one. I want it to be JDM. I want it to be black, which like very much limits, although they did make quite a lot of black ones. I can get them in Canada. There's so many importers, so it's a little bit easier, but like I've been waiting. I did own an RX-8 for a minute. It was just a shell, but being Canadian, it was rusted out. But I'm in the process right now of like, I need another drift car. I want, let's say 280 to 350 horsepower range. I don't want to screw with it. I just want to be able to get in, put seats in it, maybe a half cage and just go and drive. Cause like, I don't have time to do anything else. Like, I get maybe 3 drift weekends a year because I'm spending the rest of my time watching drifting or, doing drifting stuff. Yeah, so thanks.
It's all good. Yeah. It's an easy trade-off. I suck as a driver, so like to watch you guys do you things without me embarrassing myself, I'm set. But the RX-8 was like it still is a legitimate contender for doing this, where I'm like, I've talked to a bunch of people and they've all said the same thing. Like premix, there's the emissions, like cut off the exhaust, just straight pipe it. There was something else. I can't remember what it was. It's like upgraded.
Cooling.
Yeah, that was it. Upgrade the cooling in it. And just go and drive it. A buddy of mine drove 3 years on the original Renaissance, whatever it is, engine. And he loved it. And he's like, doesn't make a ton of torque. He goes, but it sounds like you're a monster everywhere you go because you're just flat foot the entire track.
Yeah, clutch kicking. It's and it teaches good driving. It's to have, I don't want to call it underpower, but just not V8 torque at your disposable, all the time. I think, an RX-8 or an FD, FCs in different configurations were actually very fun chassis.
MX-5s.
Yeah. MX-5. Oh, absolutely. The Miatas, the MX-5s. But they all kind of lack a little bit of power. But you go back to what drifting used to be. It wasn't always a horsepower war. It was a war of learning how to balance the car, drive the car, achieve whatever you could with whatever power you had. You look at like the old 8.6 videos, old Corolla videos, tons of clutch kicking, tiny tires, and it was much more about having fun with the car. So, it's just a matter of looking at it from different ways. I'm definitely a horsepower guy now. So, for me, I want the turbos and the power. But yeah, like an RX-8 in a different frame of mind, or like a stock VQ in a Z, is a very fun beginner chassis, and you can get a lot of good drifting out of something like that. They're great cars, great chassis.
The stock ZVQ, and then there's been a bunch of BMWs. I mean, it's incredible how fast BMWs lose value. It's wild. I found a 2013 for like, it's a 2013 turbocharged, and it was like $8,000. I'm like, what? Like, manual,
as soon as that check engine light comes on, or the drivetrain light comes on,
which could be anything. It could be anything. Yeah. Your brake pad sensor goes or something, and you're like, engine lights on, sell the car. Like,
they're great. I think they're great buys for track use or secondhand. Like, the depreciation's too much,
It's incredible.
But if you can pick one up at a good deal. Some of my crew guys, that's, I give them some flack because, it's a rotary shop. But, that was one of the reasons we looked at BMW chassis as an option. There's just so much support. The chassis has some functional good things about it. But, in the end, like I said, I'm a Mazda guy. But, the ability to pick those up as a beginner car, I would have never said this 5 to 10 years ago, but like Mustangs and Corvettes, great drift cars now. Yeah. Like, go learn, go pick something up. And, all of these are going to be, I think most of what we've talked about right here are going to be classics to some degree, because we're destroying them all. So even the RX-8s down the road are going to have value, especially any of those limited edition ones, the Corvettes, the Mustangs,
you're one of very few people that appreciate this. I recently bought a Mazda Speed Protege.
Yeah,
I owned a bunch of them back in the day, and I actually sold my BMW drift car to buy a Mazda Speed Protege, because like
those sweet cars.
Yeah, great car, love it. It's it's not fast, but like between the lights and like just getting onto the highway, it's amazing. Everywhere else, it's a dog, but like that's been like my dream, is to rear wheel drive. They did make all-wheel drive for a very limited time in Russia. Like, it's the only, but anyways, one day when I'm, rich and famous, I'll rear-wheel drive a Mazda Protege, and that'll be my drift car. But,
I think
putting it out
really
in the universe.
Cool. Yeah,
and maybe Rotary. Why not,
cool.
right?
I'll help you with that for sure.
All right,
I think
cool.
Some of those Mazda chassis, and what was it? There was the 626 or the 323, the rally car from way back in the day.
323.
Yeah, all-wheel drive rally car. So Mazda, in a weird way, has always had their kind of foot into racing.
Their own
with
path,
the rotaries, their own kind of path. They've gone a little more luxury lately, so I'm interested to see, rumors of like the RX-9. They've got a new rotary hybrid out, and the new rotary hybrid I'm excited about because it's actually a different sized rotor. So when I can get my hands on that rotor, I want to rotard. I'm going to invent a motor around that rotor. So if you can imagine, because it's not impossible to make billet rotary blocks. I got one right over here.
Right.
And but the hardest part of a rotary engine to make is the eccentric shafts, the gears, and the rotors, the rotor in particularly. So if Mazda gives us a different displacement rotor that's bigger, then there's nothing stopping the aftermarket industry from taking and building 2-rotor, 3-rotor, 4-rotor motors of a larger displacement category. And this is like, we're right on the cusp. Like, this motor is supposed to come out in Europe in 2024 as part of a hybrid. And we're supposed to get it in 2025 here in the US. And I'm already looking at the parts books. I'm like talking to my Mazda friends, like, how do I get some of these hybrid rotary components? Because, just like taking a Hayabusa motor and making it a V8, or taking an LS and building a block that's an LS V12 block, rotary engines are not that different. We can modularly configure them into whatever we want. There's 2 rotors, 3 rotors, 4 rotors, 5 rotors, 6 rotors, and a guy made a 12-rotor on the East Coast. That's out there on the internet as well. So all it takes is giving us this foundation of the block, which is way more cost effective to have the factory do than independent machine shops. And I think we'll be on our way to like a whole new category of rotary engine and something that will be part of the rotary industry. And then, sub in RX-9 or whatever that might be if Mazda comes out with that next supercar. Total fingers crossed. We're always hearing stuff.
I've heard there was talks about something being announced in Japan in like this month, but man, I know it feels like every year.
Every year, I feel like my friends in Japan tell me something's going to happen. and there's usually something at Tokyo Auto Salon that they drop, they talk about, but it's just not turning into the car yet. Want. I think, last time I heard it was a full aluminum block, 2-liter 13B with direct injection. And the issue they were having was the laser spark. And that's where their efficiency is the issue, because where the spark plug hole is, you have a gas issue. And that's where part of Mazda's loss of emissions efficiency happens, is in the spark plug holes and the way that's configured. And so if they can go to a laser ignition,
it sparks off of the rotor itself.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't even know. I'm not that amazing, but I know that the hole changes. It changes that. And that will change the emissions. And if they can figure that out, then the displacement is more power and they solve the emissions problem. And then we probably get rotaries back in different trims, which in all honesty, I think a lot of it's going to be in hybrid trim, like so many supercars and sports cars these days. But that doesn't mean you can't take those pieces out of the parts catalog or out of the hybrid or unhybrid a car to make it go drifting or something like that. We've seen Teslas with V8s in them. So we all know that, if they give us a chassis, we'll figure out a way to have fun with it. But it'll be interesting to see what the rotary does over the next 10 years. I hear people say, oh, it's dead. And it's like, no, it's actually not dead at all. The aftermarket industry is really just beginning with a lot of aftermarket components, aluminum rotors, cast blocks, aftermarket cast blocks and billet blocks, aftermarket shafts. So if Mazda actually, whether or not they do, if Mazda does come out with something new, that could really create another jump for this niche of an industry that is the rotary world. So it's interesting stuff. I don't know if it's you or Mazda Trix that's got it, but don't you have like some very old lapping, like full-size lapping machines for the blocks and the housings and everything? Yeah. That's wild. I remember seeing a video and they look old. Like it looks like World War II type of tools. Yeah, probably. I think so. Yeah. A lot of like 1950s and 40s equipment that was kind of retrofitted, I think in the 70s when the rotaries were being turned into race engines and started to go into IMSA and different Le Mans categories, GT categories, whether it be from the US, which had a pretty good field of GT and IMSA style cars, or out of Japan. But Mazda Trix, and a combination of me and Mazda Trix, I've bought some of it from Mazda Trix, but we have the old lapping tables, refinishing tables. So we're able to basically take those vintage rotary blocks or the new ones and refurbish them, which I think there's only a handful of shops in the US that even offer that anymore. So that's kind of become one of the things that myself and Mazda Trix specializes in, which would be strengthening the blocks, offering machine work, offering the available parts or the rare parts to be able to build performance configurations or maintain these classic vehicles, which is actually really difficult because you take a classic rotary car to a hot rod shop and there's a very good chance that they're not going to know what to do with that engine at all. And they could easily cause damage. And we see it all the time. And then, vice versa. It's like maybe, let the restoration of the chassis happen at a very, high caliber chassis shop, but maybe let the rotary engine restoration happen at a rotary engine facility. I don't need to name names around the country, but I'll just say you can start with Mazda Trix. You can start with KMR. There's some other ones around, but send it to us. Send it to us.
Support what you're doing.
We'll take care of you. Yeah. But having that machinery is one of the reasons I can still run in Formula Drift with rotary engines, because through the development of our package, there were some years early on where we were trying to figure out the configurations of what we needed, port-wise, strength-wise, boost-wise, nitrous-wise. And we were going into territory that nobody would talk to us about. Drag racers were either secretive or other shops were saying it just simply wasn't possible. And so obviously in the early days of me developing these packages, we blew some stuff up. And it was only because we had access to the machine shop at Mazda Trix, the lapping tables, and their support that we were able to really develop these packages. And now we can go, hey, we've had the same block all year long, and we're totally confident in it. And I plan to run that same block next year. And I think it's an interesting thing. I say, hey, that's the same block all this year, but it's actually the same block from the past 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, the eccentric shaft, which would be my crank, the center plate, the center bearing, which basically is your 20B. That's what you have to build off of. The main bearing carrier plate and the shaft has been the same for 5 years.
Wow.
Just WPC treated, keep it oiled. We're running the renewable lubricants and don't overheat it. And the components in rotary engines are very reliable, but you fail on some of those things and it goes out the window. The subsidiary parts, the rotors, the apex seals, side seals, and bearings, some of that has been replaced. Last year, we had to replace a rotor due to the electrical issue, poofed a rotor and rotor housing and the associated seals. But it had nothing to do with the engine being the failure point. It had to do with detonation caused by an electronic failure. Sent the wrong signal, detonated, we have it on data. Very sad story. Hurt the motor for no reason. But I think it's very interesting. I'll say it kind of how it is. It's a rebuild from the beginning of the year, but technically that motor's been being rebuilt each year that this RX-8 has been in competition, and that's been the same block throughout each one of these rebuilds. So there's been no block failures. We've just had some components that need to be replaced. And that's a little different than what a lot of the piston teams are able to do. But I do know there are teams that carry those blocks over year to year. So I think, again, it's trying to create rotary packages that mimic and discard what everybody said they were, that bad reputation, and mimic what other race engines are doing.
Hey, everybody, Jacob here from the Formula Drift podcast. We have an awesome deal for you. So if you head over to shopfd.com and use coupon code podcast23, you're going to save 20% on any merch. So anything you can find on that website, use podcast23 at shopfd.com. Save yourself 20%. Hats, shirts, lanyards, whatever. Just use the code. Save yourself some money. So why not? Don't stop listening. Wait till the show's done. But then head over, shopfd.com. Use podcast 23. We'll see you guys out there. So changing gears completely here. Besides having Manny Pacquiao's mother in your car, what is the most interesting person you've met through drifting?
Oh man, that was pretty wild. So, and Manny Pacquiao was there with his mom, and I'm pretty sure I offended a team member, kind of pushing them out of the way to get Manny Pacquiao's mom in there. Like, I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, I don't want to get beat up right now or offend anybody. But that was pretty cool. We've had some other celebrities come through that have been pretty amazing. But the one that probably stands out, and I don't know, going to end up on blacklisted somewhere for saying this probably. But so when I was in China doing the and this is a weird one, so I don't know, but it's like the one that came into my head. But I got to meet the former Mexican president, Vega Fox.
Okay.
And it was in a totally random, it'd be like I haven't got to meet any of the U.S. presidents. They haven't came to any drift events. Come
on, guys.
That'd be pretty rad. Come on, step it up. But literally, you're like, is that the dictator? You're like, yeah. Oh, hey, he's walking by. Hey, I'm a drifter. Went by, and I was like, was that really are we like on a list now? Like, what happened? Just kind of I was standing there and that happened. But I think that's one of those odd things that I would have never had that happen had I have not been a professional drifter and just happened to be plopped in this spot where there was parade of people walking by and we were just there being the celebrities of the event. And there were other U.S. drifters right there next to me. I won't give any of them away.
Yeah.
That was wild. On other notes, William Shatner. Got to meet William Shatner. Yeah, that was pretty.
Damn.
Yeah, that was really rad. Super nice guy. Got to meet Ellen DeGeneres. That was kind of random cool. Through driving. Yeah, did that. Some other. Oh, I got to meet. Rock band. I let their lead singer, Queens of the Stone Age, and he was a car guy. Yeah, he was a car guy, and so he was like sweet talking me, and he was like, "Hey, let me like take your car around," and I was like, "All right, you break it, you bought it," and he was like, "Sure," and he almost put it into a telephone pole. Maybe 2 inches from the driver door. Like his agent and everybody was like, get out of the car. You're not allowed to drive anybody else's cars for the day. So it's just really interesting where you end up and who you meet. And it's totally, I would have never met any of those people had it have not been for motorsports. And it was never them meeting me because I'm Kyle Mohan. It was totally always like, here's the pro drifter, say hi to this guy. But it's a really neat thing to have happen. And so many of the celebrities were just so nice and down to earth. Oh, Paul Walker. Got to hang out with Paul Walker multiple times before he passed away. And wow. That hurt. Honestly, like if you're a car guy, that really stung. I got to drive his BMW. I was part of the Fast and the Furious, some of the stunt driving and commercials that happened. And just, stuff from doing this for years. And like he was the coolest down to earth guy. I never talked to him at all about filming or movies or anything. We talked about like fishing. We talked about cars. We talked about track life, nature. And he would just talk as long as you wanted to talk. But I could see as soon as he got approached as an actor, he walked away. That was not why he was out in public. That was not why he was at the track. He ran in Redline Time Attack before it turned into Global Time Attack for a couple events. And so we were out there at Button Willow. And at that point, I'd worked with him on the movie stuff a little bit. And so we were chatting a little bit. And totally random, amazing things that it's almost hard to even believe have happened. I met Tarzan Yamada, got to hang out with that guy, which I mean, maybe not on like the celebrity level of like Shatner, but hanging out. I got to go to a restaurant and have a couple of beers with Tarzan and a couple of those guys. And it's funny. Cool. It's kind of funny, the Japanese guys. To get in trouble for this one, but after a couple of beers, they always speak better English. And it's like there's no English, and then a couple of beers in, Tarzan was talking to me in English, or maybe I could just understand Japanese better. So
maybe it was the beers you were having that was doing it.
It's totally that definitely goes both ways there. So very nice people, very fun, life-changing events. Probably more things like that, but it's been an amazing ride and a blessing to be part of drift culture as it's grown and got to have these experiences. And, as amazing all of that is, it's really, like you mentioned at the beginning, it's always been a family effort from my side. It's always been me and my pops. My wife was my spotter for a long time.
Yep.
Now that we have a kid, she's kind of busy with that. So not my spotter anymore, but, we've never been a massively funded team. We've always kind of chosen the odd path with the Rotary. But what I would say is it's just been an amazing time, and it's so much fun to do with my friends and my family. And then, like you brought up, the opportunity to meet these people over this time has just been incredible. I would love to get some big funding someday. And we've had some good partners, but I really do think that, there's a big part to that where some of the teams, they're able to afford, maybe it's not a big difference in car if we eliminate that, but the infrastructure around the car. Like whereas me and other drivers like Jeff Jones, oh man, so Cash, I think he still does it. We drive our trucks and trailers to the events. And so the amount of time that we're gone from either our businesses or on the road that we're being exhausted, because it is exhausting to drive across the country, show up, do a Formula Drift event, is part of the infrastructure that's difficult to kind of obtain. As where, and I'm not knocking anybody, as where when you have the ability as a driver, and I've been able to do this in other situations, kind of show up, be prepared to drive, and everything's there, it's your focus level is able to go up. And so that's kind of outside of building my dream car. We've been putting a ton of effort into building more infrastructure at my shop. Mazda Trix is a pretty big shop, but KMR, we're still a small shop. So I'm trying to build up the infrastructure here, add more parts and products. So when I'm traveling, the business kind of continues. And then same thing, having a little more of a dedicated paid crew that's able to travel with the team, be at every round, work on the car, maintain the car, that doesn't have to get home right away to go back to their day job. Becomes a big part of competing in Formula Drift. So for us, these steps of, over the past couple of years, bigger trucks, bigger trailers, better shop infrastructure, more time for me to develop my driving skills, whether it be at track events or on simulators, all part of what we're doing, kind of similar to what any professional athlete really should be doing. And then now looking at, okay, what's my next biggest hurdle? And that's getting the team and the transportation a little bit off of my shoulders and a little bit into more of that professional realm where, we have the infrastructure to make all that happen. We have the finances to make all that happen.
Yeah. Well, that's what it comes down to at the end of the day.
That's what it comes down
to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and it's been amazing over the years to gradually take those steps. And, the past couple of years, we've been able to make further steps. So I'm hoping as this goes, our partners like Renewable, eFlex, Mazda Trix, Exity, NGK, everybody who's making it happen. Hopefully we continue to make this partnership grow with them. So we can make some of my really dedicated team members more like my employees, my staff, versus how it's been for so many years and for so many Formula Drift teams, which is still a effort of, love and friendship from a lot of people. My dad's not getting paid to come to these events. For many years, he was ditching his work, his business, to come and enjoy and partake and help the team succeed along with a few other friends. So it's like, ideally at some point we can, turn the race team into the full business, not just the shop and everything else.
Hopefully you can just get like big Mazda funding. That's all we need. I mean,
man, that would be great.
I'm sure that's the dream though. Just like one day to have like
absolutely. And we're always talking to those companies. We've worked with Mazda on and off, and they have a love-hate with drifting. They love that everybody loves drifting and that it's so iconic with their cars, but they hate to put money into it. It'd be great to see them come on board more, especially with the potential for new Rotary and the potential for things like the Mazda RX-9. I think, the zoom that used to be like the Mazda thing. Yeah. I think they're going to try to bring it back. I think, they've weighed heavy into creating some luxury performance market image and cars. And I think that they still are creating sports cars. You look at the ND and the future RX-9 if they bring it out. So I think it would make sense to bring some zoom back. And I would expect to see Mazda put more effort into motorsports in the near future. So I think that could happen. Yeah, I can't say for sure, but that's what I hear.
Yeah. No, I mean, we've seen it where even like Ford releasing their new basically like track Mustang when the GT came out, like it takes a couple of these other companies to start doing that. And then everybody else like, oh, okay, I guess we're going back to doing this. Like that's, all it takes is one brand to do it. Even realistically, like the mid-engine Corvette, Like that is what spurred Ford to get going, which will hopefully, I mean, and then there's just Dodge that's just like, everything gets 1,000 horsepower, whether you like it or not. So
just wedge that in there, that Hemi.
Yeah.
I think that's cool. And I think as manufacturers race electric cars, because their electric cars numbers are so powerful and the torque numbers are so high, you see reciprocating engines and just the regular manufacturers also kind of getting caught up in, I think, a race for horsepower and torque, because everybody at the end of the day wants to have either a beautiful car or a powerful car. If you're a car person, you don't generally want to have the lowest horsepower car around. It's a little bit of a flex. So, you see, I think, internal combustion continuing to get a push. And I think it was like Porsche announced not too long, because I'm a Porsche guy as well. I coach at Porsche and love GT3s, and definitely would drift one of those if I could have the chance. I have, but in Formula Drift. I'd love to bring a Porsche to Formula Drift again, because JIC did it back in the day.
I was going to say there was one.
I think Porsche announced that they were going to go into development of their own fuel for internal combustion. So instead of saying, hey, we're going to agree and go electric, they're like, no, you said we need to get away from gasoline. Okay, we're going to invent a new fuel. And I think that's really neat. So I think, seeing that kind of stuff. And that's kind of like a weird thing I got into is, most of Formula Drift runs ethanol. We're almost all, some guys aren't, but the majority of the field runs ethanol. It's cheaper. We can get it easy here in the US. It's corn fuel, basically, whiskey for cars. But, it's environmentally friendly and cheaper and higher octane, or at least at a high octane. So depending on what race fuel you're running, at least for our case in rotaries, we don't want to run a leaded fuel. So the highest octanes are about 105 to 108 octane. And that comes into about $20, $27 a gallon. And so a long time ago, we realized that we could be running ethanol at approximately the same octane, and it was going to be $2 to $5 a gallon. And we could have it delivered to the track. It's not as corrosive. It's not as toxic if you get it on your skin. And it's not as bad for the environment. There's other things with ethanol that you have to be aware of when it comes to your fuel systems. You do need to have an ethanol rated system. But for us, it became a way with the rotary engine. We were able to generate more power with the octane and have a cleaner fuel. And that was kind of funny too, because then we got into renewable lubricants, which is a non-petroleum based oil. So we ended up being the only car in Formula Drift and the only car I know of in professional motorsports in the US that has absolutely no petroleum-based products in it. Our greases, our oils, our fuel. We run an E98 fuel, so technically there's probably a little bit of gasoline run, but it's an E98, so it's high content. But our thought process was, wouldn't it be kind of neat if we could partner with these companies and create a program that would be considered environmentally friendly that's still a normal combustion engine? And that's essentially what we've done. By eliminating petroleum from our car, we've got a more environmentally friendly and responsible package, less environmental footprint. And we actually make more power than we did on gasoline, because ethanol had the octane we needed and it's a cooler burn. We saved money. And then renewable lubricants kind of came along, developed a premix, had the oils on tap already, and already had the performance reputation from 20 years in business out of Ohio, to kind of get into drifting and what the abuse of drifting is. Because if you're not familiar with drifting is super abusive on the motors, and you got to have good products, whether it be the fuel or the oil, even the water. Everything's got to be top quality. I think Genova talked about it in one of your podcasts recently, the drift tax. I laughed so hard. It's so true. The motors I build for the Formula Drift car, if they were in a drag car, they'd be 1,600 to 1,800 horsepower, but they won't live in a drift car for that long. So they're 1,000 horsepower motor, and every component is like that goes into a drift car. You tell them you're going to run 1,000 horsepower through it, they're like, oh yeah, it's fine. You put it in there, you blow it up, they go redesign it. So, it's just was a matter of finding high quality components that worked with our package. And then being California guy, I like surfing, I like hiking in the mountains. I like fishing. Deep down inside, I was always like, am I burning the things that I actually enjoy, and can I do something different? And hey, everybody to each their own, do what you want. But I found a way for me to enjoy the performance motorsports and some other products to go in there that gave it a little bit more of an environmentally friendly spin.
Which you guys have swapped over too, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Like it's not like it's just you running that oil anymore.
No. Yeah, it's actually really good stuff. It's made here in the USA, and it's very stable under extreme temperatures and under high loads. They've tested in NHRA drag racing and offshore powerboat racing. The U.S. government uses it. That's kind of how they came about. So I'll leave it at that. Go check it out. Renewable Lubricants. They'll be really appreciative of that title sponsor. And I'll throw in Mazda Trix and eFlex in there as well. eFlex, basically, if you've got an OEM car, you can put a flex fuel piggyback on your OEM car so you can run ethanol. And since gas is $7 a gallon right now, that piggyback system is extremely viable. Like put it on your Tundra, put it on your Z. You put it on a boosted car and it's gonna up the timing, so you're gonna get a performance advantage and a cheaper fuel. Yeah, that's what that eFlex sticker is on the back. It's a piggyback computer that allows your street car to flex fuel in any of them, your truck, whatever. Yeah, it's awesome. Super cool technology. Yeah, you get a little app on your phone and you can like make like you're a tuner and make some adjustments, but it's pretty safe.
Yeah. I did not know that. Okay. I might have to look into that.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool stuff for the industry, especially from the standpoint of where we have so many modern cars that are boosted, or we're looking for a little more throttle pickup, accelerator pedal pickup, similar to like one of some of the other plugins do. A little mild tuning, and then in this case, it gives you the option to flex fuel as well. Which
some Subaru guys that'll be all over this.
Oh,
that's
man.
That's like the most Subaru thing I've heard.
and I've been surprised too, is the truck guys. Because
that makes
there's
sense.
a lot and so then you can flex fuel your truck if you're daily driving it, cut down on fuel and pick up a little power. So it's kind of neat technology. So that's what's on the side of my car. That's what's going on.
Okay.
I think people ask and they're like, what's renewable lubricants? It's corn-based oil. And what's eFlex? It's piggyback flex fuel computers. Get out
I'm
there.
going to look into that.
Car.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I've never. That's the first time. Like, obviously, I know about flex fuel sensors and mapping based on ethanol content, but never like a plug and play, or at least like a piggyback system. Yeah. Wow.
It just plugs in. It bypasses on your injector clip. So basically, you just plug in on top of your injector clips. The OEM harness goes back on. It's like power and ground, Wi-Fi up. You're good to go. Oh, and a flex fuel sensor in the kit.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
damn.
Yeah,
I'm going to look into that. That's
wife's four-rotor, flex fuel. Shop truck, if it's not diesel, flex fuel. It's cool. Performance and a cheaper alternative. And you think about it, I think a lot of people are like, oh, but ethanol, it's like, hey, it's flex fuel. You still have gas in there. You're still getting the lubrication. You're not running the system dry. It's not 100% alcohol. That's, you can't even get that really these days. So.
No. I wanted to know where the 99 came from, because you like pulled that number real quick and you've had it.
It's mine. Yeah. Not giving it up. There's people that have tried. Like, I'm pretty sure like some drivers offered me money or something, but not giving it up. So I was really into a couple reasons, really. So I really did a lot of RC car racing as a youth. Like full on professional RC car racing. Probably where it all started. Traveled with my pops, my dad, and my grandpa too. And we raced RC cars. We did the pan cars, whether it be road course or oval. Won some national championships. Traveled around to a lot of the West Coast stuff, like just Vegas and Bakersfield, NorCal, San Diego. Yeah. But it was an amazing way for when I was young. My dad was keeping me out of trouble. And it was an amazing way to do something with the family. He was a car guy. I was a car guy. It got the grandparents involved. And so we would do these RC car events. And in a way, when I started to get into motorsports, Like I already understood apexes. I already understood the lingo. I already, understood how to generate lap times, early apex, late apex. So as I kind of got into what originally I thought was going to be into road racing, I was using a lot of what I had learned from RC cars, and my RC cars number was always one of the numbers I picked was always 99. And so it was kind of a number I would always go with. And then, jump a little forward. I was racing, I was doing stuff. Greg Moore was 99 in Indy cars. And he was a very iconic driver. And unfortunately, he passed at California Speedway years ago, like 2004 or something, 2006. And I was there. And it was a sad thing because, like, as a motorsports fan, he was like the guy I was rooting for at that event. And I watched him crash. And so again, like I was already using that number. That was his number. And then in a weird way, right at the same time, I was working at Mazda Trix. We had started a race team at Mazda Trix. I was building all the motors for that race team, kind of heading up. I wasn't one of the drivers, but I was heading up kind of the motor development side. And the owner of Mazda Trix always ran number 99. And so I was like, hey, I've always ran 99. And he was like, I've always, and it's kind of like, there's some universe things there, like 99, like, there's some significance to that number in its sequence, but it just became something that like, I was like, wow, too many times has this number come up. It's very significant. The people around me are using this number. The people I liked were using this number. I've always used this number. And so right when I had the opportunity to go into Formula Drift, I was like 99. And it's so funny that I have not been the only person who has wanted that number. And then in weird ways too, like, me and Trent Beecham ended up on a team together for a couple seasons, just with some partners. And he is, I think, 999.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I asked him, I was like, what's up with that? And he was like, well, I was number 99, but you have 99. And so he's like, he's like, that's my numbers. And he's like, so I just added another 9. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm not giving that up, buddy. So yeah, it's kind of interesting how myself and other drivers as well, there are numbers that have significant meaning to us. For me, it's shop history, childhood history, moments in life, that kind of builds the significance. And yeah, it's definitely become part of our image, like our gear, KMR 99, the decals. If you're picking up KMR swag, it's probably going to have 99 on there. And so it's become like the Rotary part of our team and what we're doing. So yeah, many reasons. Even if I won the championship, I would probably leave number 99 and put a 1 next to it or something like that.
It's 199.
Got to keep the 99, yeah.
Huh. I was like subtly hoping you go down like a Wayne Gretzky route just because I'm a big hockey guy. But
okay,
hey.
yeah. So I mean, being from Long Beach, I grew up watching the Kings and
LA
Gretzky.
Kings, yeah.
Gretzky was an amazing player, so I did grow up watching him. And there probably is some significance there, but it was all those things. Like I said, so many times that number was on, people that I was watching or at times in my life. So yeah, Gretzky's a good one too. That guy's a great player. I like hockey. Used to be when Gretzky was playing, I was a pretty big hockey fan. But the weird thing is once I started drifting, like I had time for nothing else.
Yeah, it's so funny you just bring that up because like everybody I've spoken to at FD that's at that level, like that's what it becomes. Like there is this is my life, and anything that I'm doing supports this thing. Like
100% dedication, and it's like I mentioned it earlier, kind of changing my own thought process. It's like for so many years, it's like. I was an engine builder. I'm a driving coach. I do drifting. And it's like now it's a different mindset. It's kind of like how Matt Field or Denofa, it's like, no, I'm a professional driver. So it's like diet matters, training matters. Like I'm trying to reverse aging. That's not going so well. I'm getting older no matter how hard I try. But just being able to keep in shape for these events, keep the stamina up, be able to stay mentally sharp by the time you have to go qualify is crazy. Like Formula Drift, nobody talks about this. Formula Drift tries to torture us during qualifying days. Like they make them the longest days possible, half the
It's
time we
brutal.
sit in the sun, like do an autograph session, and then we're going to qualify usually when the sun is setting in our eyes at the end of the day. So the visibility's changed, the track conditions changed. I'm going to be blind and I'm tired. Man.
By the way, and you need to be perfect. Yeah.
And it's your opportunity to be perfect or go home. So it's extremely important to be able to stay awake for a day that takes that much energy, maintain mental composure, physical, ability to not, it's like, it's real easy to drink a Red Bull early in the day and then be tired in the afternoon or not feel as good as you could have in these situations. So yeah, kind of restructuring, like at this point, 20 years into a career, maybe a few years ago, it was like this whole mindset change of like, wow, not only for myself, but to be the best entertainer, the best athlete, because it's kind of a mixture of in drifting. I can be is not to be lazy, but is to get on the sim, is to get out there, get some exercise. But that combined with the efforts of the transport, the cars, keeping everything running, being at events, it just becomes what I think is great, which is my dream, is a full-time career based around drifting. But things like I used to play guitar. Don't do that much anymore. Like I like surfing and fishing. A couple times a year. I'm finally getting to go do some camping occasionally because my son is now 4.5.
Yeah.
And it's like, I absolutely have to get out with him and get those experiences, both for myself and the wife, but also for him. Of course, he's coming to the events. He's a car guy already. I already ruined it in case anybody's worrying there.
Yeah, it doesn't take.
He's got
much.
all kinds of car stuff. He already speaks brap. Like he likes rotaries.
Speaks brap.
Yeah. It's all done. He comes to the shop and wants to hit stuff with a hammer and work on stuff. Even a 4.5-year-old. But I keep telling him to be a doctor. But just being able to have some time to break away from drifting once in a while, because it has been a long career, but also try to stay fresh and try to stay hungry. And try to stay proactive on being the best I can be for the sport, for my partners, for my family, for myself, for my team, all of that, which is not easy. It's a lot.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's tough. It's a war of attrition.
Yeah.
I mean,
it is.
I mean, I think we've kind of covered like what keeps you in it, but like how long can you see yourself doing this for? Like, I know that's such a tough question to ask. I ask all the longtime guys I ask this. So like, I'm not picking on you. Don't worry.
Yeah. I mean, I love it so much. I do not see stopping it, if that makes sense.
Okay. Like there's it's not on the horizon.
Personally, something that we've been trying to figure out as a team, and it's a little more difficult, being Rotary based. But I would love to get a teammate. I would love to, again, have a partner in driving, whether it be somebody that I bring on and is working with me in a car I build or drives one of my existing cars as I get another car built. But just like Odie or, RTR or, so many, Stefan Papadakis.
Yeah.
Longevity in motorsports doesn't always mean specifically behind the driver's seat. I would love to be able to continue to run a team and be a driver forever, but I would also love to be able to run a team and see a team and a business flourish that I own, and the cars that I build be driven to their optimal ability. And so I've always thought it would be interesting to maybe get somebody into the MX-5 because I think it's a very competitive car. Maybe even outside of Formula Drift, just see how that goes. I actually did field a driver in Pro 2 years ago, and we were fairly successful, but he missed his license. He was like the one guy short. He hit the wall at Irwindale. Yeah, we were really close, and so that was it was like kind of at that point the effort died in that momentum. But it wasn't because we didn't want to do it. It's just a matter of putting the right pieces together. And then, there's just so many things to do. We built the shop business over the past few years instead of maybe hunting for another teammate or driver. But I think as we build the four-rotor, to answer your question, I would like to keep drifting as long as I can in the driver's seat. And then I would also like to investigate other ways to continue to be involved in the sport and grow my team and my business around drifting and the sport that it is. And maybe even backwards expand to what I used to do into some road racing. But I think drifting is where I actually find the most enjoyment. It's really the sport that I enjoy the most.
It'd be sick. I mean, hopefully this like gets a whole bunch of the Prospec guys knocking on your door where it's like, yeah. Like I think it'd be sick to see a Rotary and Prospec. I think arguably it would be like, just if you were to take that NC and basically just put that into Prospec, even on those 255s, I think it would absolutely just destroy. Like, it would be very interesting. And there's certain things you can do. And kind of like there's certain like benefits and drawbacks to having such a small wheelbase too. Although it's not that, what is it, 94 inches?
Yeah, 93, 94. So it's pretty short.
Yeah.
And I absolutely agree. I think in like a Prospec trim, or like I've ran it in HotPit.
Yeah.
It's very competitive, very competitive car. And it has pros and cons. Being small at times, makes the ability to chase its pocket is very narrow. Yeah. But it also means your positioning as a lead driver, like, is very noticeable. If you come up shallow, the whole car is outside of the box, or the whole car is inside of the box. So I think, with its uniqueness, given the right driver, it could be extremely competitive. But it would need somebody who's into that style of car, that style of driving. I think that, a lot of people probably remember it from when we had it in Formula Drift and it was a little twitchy. We ended up re-engineering the rear suspension, and in both cars, the RX-8 and the MX-5, because they're similar 5-links. And we were able to eliminate a lot of that twitchiness that car used to have. So I think that's part of why it looks better when we've used it recently, and why it's gotten a little more attention. And then also why I've reconsidered the idea of, actually, maybe that is a really good car, and maybe getting somebody into it could showcase how good it really is outside of me, because, hey, if somebody can outdrive me in my own car, bring it. Come on. And like, you got a license and maybe a couple sponsors, like, well, let's talk,
We've seen it. I mean, we've seen it this year with both. I mean, James Dean, Chelsea Denofa, Adam, out driving Vaughn in some cases, Simon out driving Odie. I think he's beat him twice now. Like, it's possible. Like, it's definitely possible. I think that'd be sick.
Yeah. And I think one thing that's really interesting is, I worked with Porsche and other companies for many years as a driving coach, driving instructor. And you can have a really good driver, but if they don't know the track and the nuances, they can struggle. And you can have a driver hop into a team that maybe has all of that information on tap and give that car setup, give that information to that driver that already has the skill set, and they can prosper really quickly. But they can come in and struggle on their own, not being able to find maybe the gearing, the track setup, the alignment settings, if you're trying to come into Prospec or Formula D from a private level. And I know that because the first couple of years I ran Formula Drift, that's all I was doing, was trying to figure out gearing, car settings, shift points, because you're only getting 8 laps, 10 laps before qualifying.
10 if you're lucky. Yeah.
And there wasn't sim driving when I was starting in Formula Drift. So you had to do physical driving. Yeah. But now, I've got my sim right here next to me. We were all playing Irwindale last night. I'm horrible at sim drifting, but visually and mentally, it still really helps me out. There's been multiple times this year where hopping onto the sim has given me visual accountability of the course before I go out to those events. And then my spotter is a sim driver, William Holloway. And so he runs on a lot of the professional EA sports stuff. Yep. And I found it really interesting being able to tap into his knowledge of drifting from the sim side and being able to put him in the spotter's tower and have him observe what Formula Drift is doing and quickly be able to give me feedback from his perspective, that totally makes sense driver to driver. He's just coming from a sim driving world, as where sometimes I have to remind him, like, remember, I can't hit the wall right now. There's no reset button.
You have to pull a Ryan Literal and put him in the car.
Yeah.
I mean, that'll be, I want to see more of that. It's so cool to see.
Yeah, we've talked about it. And Ryan Literal, and who was it? Was it a James Dean?
Piotr Vinsek did that.
Yeah. So both of those drivers doing that have definitely given me interest into seeing what some of the other sim drivers can do. And vice versa. I think, whether it be from the, like, is it riverside drift, hot pit, clutch kickers. I think these are all really good, like, testing grounds, breeding grounds for where potentially future Formula Drift drivers can be coming from. So yeah,
I've been very much any of those live streams that come up, I try and pull them up and watch, like, even if it's just passively, just to see. Like, I'm very interested and obviously invested in who are we going to see come into Pro 2 next year or Prospec next year, and then who would the potentially move up. And, like, for me, it was like Robert Thorne, where, like, I knew nothing about him. He goes into Prospec. I saw him run a couple laps his first run in Prospec, and I went, there's something here. And then I did some research. I'm like, oh, this kid's got, like, lap time on tracks that, like, no one can touch, and then makes the jump into pro. He played spoiler to James Dean in St. Louis. Like,
that was an amazing battle.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of too, I want to give you a big shout out, because last year you almost spoiled Frederick Osbo's championship in Irwindale.
Oh, man.
Buddy, holy cow.
When we get the setup right, it's a really good car. And that's, again, where I talk about team infrastructure playing such a big part of what the driver can do. Because it's not just driver against driver out there. It's team against team. And when you're going up against Osbo, you're going up against Papadakis. Yeah. And that's a really big thing. I think a lot of people don't think about that, but he's an amazing engineer. And so anytime us as a privateer team or a somewhat private team and a rotary team, smallest displacement out there, can get those upsets or almost knock Osbo out, I mean, those are really big moments for us, because if you really think about it, like, from Papadakis's perspective, he probably should not be getting challenged by us. Anytime we can get out there and put it on Frederick's door or Castro's door, or anybody for that matter, it's a big deal to us. And that's, again, why we show up. It's to put pressure on those guys. After the last battle I had with Osbo, I believe in Utah, I went over to him and I told him, I was like, I'm getting you next time. And he stopped and he looked at me and he was like, he was thinking about it and he was like, no, you're not. But I know he knew for a moment exactly that I meant it, because at Irwindale last year, I'll talk about that in a moment. But at Irwindale last year and at Utah, I think we fielded a very competitive car against them. And I left both of those battles having made one mistake to give it away. And it made me really feel like if I had the opportunity to do it again, or I could eliminate that one mistake, that we could potentially be getting one more times or wins against some of these top teams. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. So the battle against Osbo last year, that was a really tough one. That was a tough one for so many reasons. In the rain is always super difficult. I like driving in the rain. I'm probably one of the odd American drivers that likes it. But
you're like the only California driver that likes it.
I don't know why. I don't get to rain practice around here. Maybe it's because it's so unique. I'm like, whoa, free horsepower. I've got unlimited torque. Like, this is amazing.
I think that's what it is. I think it's just that, like, you don't have to worry about torque. It's
super responsive. And a lot of people, like, I have a boost knob. I could turn it down for rain. I don't. I leave it up. I leave everything the same. We drop the tire pressures and disconnect the rear sway bar. That's our setting changes for rain, and it works great. But, in that run against Frederick, and I do not fault Frederick at all, it's just a racing incident. When we came down into the inner clip, there was a transitional change. It goes from the bank to flat, and it was a very bad hydroplane right there. And when Fred hit it, he went straight. And I lifted. Like at that moment was like, whoa, I didn't know if he was crashing. Something was happening. It was totally my fault. If I had stayed in the gas, I would have hit him. And this was my mistake. This is something I learned from that event was don't save the cars. Don't. We're not there to save a car. I needed to hit Frederick. It was 100% my win if I had to hit him because it would have been his fault. But because I lifted, I tried not to hit him. I changed my line. Then he relit and I relit. I was now offline and I drove my car right into the wall trying to chase him. If you actually watch the video, he goes off track too. There's just no wall there. We both went off track at the finish line. I hit the wall. It hurt. You had to go get towed in. At the time, the spotter was unsure of calling a protest. He hadn't noticed that Fred had gone off track too. And it's arguable, like where it was at was just past the finish line, but the rules state you got to maintain drift.
Maintain control.
Control. And so technically, his mistake forced me into a crash and he still basically went off track. So I would have loved to have actually had enough time or somebody from my team say, hey, that's probably protestable, because we didn't realize until we were at home a day later, Sunday, getting ready for the banquet, going, man, wait a minute. Like there was a lot of mistakes that happened right there. And some of them were ours, just not playing our cards right. So again, kudos to Papadakis Racing. They got the win. But I would say that arguably could have gone at least one more time. We weren't able to get the car fixed in the 5 minutes we had. We were a minute away from fixing it and getting to get back out there and try again, in which case maybe the judges would have looked at what had actually happened. More so if we had to have had done another run, and maybe my team could have looked at what had actually happened. But either way, it's part of the entertainment. We went out with a bang at the end of last year.
That was great.
Beating Castro and then really putting a competitive car, whether it's wet or dry, up against Papadakis Racing was a big thing for us. And this year, although we haven't got the points, I feel like we've had some amazing battles. Absolutely great run. I feel like against Osvo at the last round, I just dropped a tire, and it's such like, man, Utah's so tough. With. You're in the smoke, and it's like I could just feel the tire just glide off in that little stall and back on. Forsberg went against him in St. Louis, and I feel like it was probably one of the best chases I've done against Forsberg in the past couple of years. But man, that car digs out of the hole. We got on the throttle I feel like we got on throttle at about the same time coming out of that hairpin. And he just outpowered me. So that's coming back to where I think us bringing a four-rotor to the competition may alleviate a little bit of that torque power discrepancy. And then also looking into the longevity of the team and seeing if maybe, we can develop ways to make sure Kyle Mohan Racing, Mazda Trix, the whole Rotary contingent in Formula Drift continues to live on in many different ways. That would be my goal.
Sick. Well, I'm excited for it, man. I'm pumped. As much as this is like coming out after Irwindale, maybe this will be like ominous and people will be like, oh, they talked about this. He did beat him. I don't know.
Well, we're going into Irwindale ready to kill. I mean,
we
have our setups. The car's running great. Vitor has given us a great tire this year. Yeah, that's a great thing. And that's what everybody says. Oh, they're wild. And what I say is, no, you gave me, Rome, and Cash, who are pretty solid drivers with wild cars, a competitive tire.
You took three competitive guys and gave me a competitive tire.
Gave us a competitive tire. And so now we're showing up a lot better. But, I think that's been a game changer. And just, I can't wait to see. It looks like, it's going to be dry at Irwindale. Last year was rain. So
it was
fingers crossed. We'll see how that turns out. But we're definitely going there to upset some of those big teams.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm stoked for you, man.
Thank you.
Well, I'm glad we got to do this. It was like a couple weeks back and forth, but it's all good. You guys have, I've learned this, like booking all of you. everyone has insane lives and just trying to like, and everybody's very polite too, where they're like, they want to make sure that like my schedule is fine. I'm like, don't worry about my schedule. I'll worry about yours. So, but yeah, I'm glad we got to do this, man. Thank you. Thank you.
Likewise, I really appreciate it. And I enjoy watching the episodes. So it's kind of cool to be on here now. Thank you. Thanks for making it happen. Makes me feel important.
Long time listener, first time caller, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, just thanks to everybody, all the fans, everybody who loves Rotaries. Like, thank you so much. And then, all of my partners that make it happen. I couldn't do it without my partners. So please check out my YouTube, check out Instagram. Give me a shout out. Give me a follow. I'll say hi. I run all that stuff. I don't have some agent right now. So maybe someday, but basically right now you're talking to me. So feel free to say hi. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I always make sure to put all the links in the podcast description. So go take a look. The YouTube stuff's been fun too. I was catching up on some of that. So it's good, man. It's good. For everybody listening at home, thank you so much. Make sure to watch. There's proof that he does have Apex seals and premix on hand at any given time.
All the time. Yeah.
That was not staged. That was not staged at all.
It's just my office. It's like, rotary parts. I got clutch discs,
There you go. Sick. Cool. Well, thanks, Kyle. Thank you for everybody listening, and we'll catch everybody next week.
Oh, no! Whoa!